Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to the Human in Me podcast. You are here with your boy Mpume Swashe, and I am joined once more by Ndamulelo.
Yes, sir. What's up?
Welcome once more. Okay, so today we are doing the 9th episode, right? Yeah. So today is the 9th episode, and we just thought we should touch on this whole thing of, seeking the approval of others. But before we go down that path, I just wanted us to touch on how that actually manifests itself. Where does it all come from? Because a part of the reason why I wanted us to talk about this specific topic was because I was reading a book the other day called The Long Road Home by Daniel Steele. So what happened in the book, there was this woman who met this guy and then they had a child. But unfortunately for the child, she spent the first 10 years of her life being abused by her mother, right? And if I can remember vividly, the book starts with the child hiding inside the closet, and the mother is looking for her, looking for her around the house, and then it gets to a point where the mother realizes that I have to look inside the closet. So she opens up the closet and she finds the child in there. And then she pulls her out, and then she beats the living fuck out of her. And I know I'm not supposed to say it like that, but unfortunately that's basically what happened. That's how severe the beatings were. So, and then obviously the father, finally decides to leave because he just couldn't deal with what was happening, or he didn't know how to deal with what was happening. So he decides to leave, and then the mother is left there with the child. And then the mother meets another guy, and then, she lives with the guy, and then she sends the child to a place where you find nuns, a convent. A monastery. So the child, is left there. But the thing that stood out the most for me when I was busy, because I'm not done yet, when I was reading the book, was that through the entire time when the child was, being beaten up, being abused and all that stuff, she was constantly being told how she always fucks up things, how bad she actually is. So the entire narrative, around the abuse was centered more on making the child feel inferior. Nothing she did, absolutely nothing she ever did was enough for her mother. And obviously as time goes by, she tried to be the child, mommy's daughter, but she didn't succeed because the mother's one and only mission was to make sure that, she beats the child every chance she gets, right? So the child obviously grows up, and the one thing that keeps on coming back to her is that she's not enough. Right, so she struggles with that. She basically went to university while she was still staying in the monastery, in the convent. She goes to varsity and then she studies something to do with literature. She graduates and then she's basically a good writer, according to the story. So with her writing skills, people keep on telling her that she writes nice stories. She needs to start selling them, but because of what had happened when she was still a child, with all the nonsense that her mother exposed her to, it was difficult for her to get to that level where she can be like, I know I can do this thing.
It's one hell of a life story.
Bro.
Wow.
Yo, that was like the saddest thing I've ever read. I read the book when I was still in high school. And then I thought, let me just go back to the book and see if I can understand it better now that I'm old. And throughout I think it's the first 6 episodes, she was living through hell, bro. She was living through hell. There was this part where she got beaten so much that she couldn't even move.
Wow.
It's not funny, but it got to a point where she was beaten to a point that she couldn't move, right? So afterwards, she was beaten on top of her bed, and because she couldn't move, she needed to, go and relieve herself. But she couldn't do that because she was in so much pain. So she ended up peeing the bed, and the next morning she wakes up and then she makes it a point that the mother doesn't come across, the stain that she left behind. So she tries to remove the sheets and all that stuff. And the last time she got beaten was when her father found her the next day lying in a pool of blood. That was when her mother literally went rogue on her and she beat the living fuck out of that child.
Wow.
Yo, dude. Like, when I'm not laughing, I'm actually crying. So, yo, dude, that was like the saddest shit I've ever read. Like I spent the first 6 episodes and with tears on my eyes. That's how bad this thing was. The first 6 chapters, I was sitting there, and the tears were like literal on my eyes, and I was like, "Fuck!" Bro, that thing was so bad. So okay, yeah. So the thing that, like I said, there's this thing within this child that keeps, or even though when she's grown up, there's constantly this thing that she's struggling with, where she doesn't feel like she's enough in any kind of way. And what she does now is that she tries so hard to be a people pleaser. She spends her entire existence trying to do the right thing, trying to please people, even though at the very same time she's putting her life on the line. But she doesn't see that because she grew up being told constantly that everything that went wrong in their lives, with her and her mother and father, was basically her fault, even though she didn't know anything or didn't know how any of that could be her fault. But she constantly got beaten because of that, constantly. So it was so bad, bruh, that I felt the need to, come here and share the experience and be like, yo. Yeah, but the thing that stood out the most for me because of that was the fact that a lot of us a lot of people, let me not say a lot of us, a lot of people do grow up in households where nothing they ever do is enough. Right? Nothing they do ever do is enough. Even when you come back with a report card from school where you got like level 5s, your mother or father would always be like, you could do better than that. So there's no room for for congratulations. Like, it never actually gets to that. So the majority of us grow up in such environments, and then when we are old, we try so hard to make sure that we please people, because in our eyes it never got to a point where our parents were satisfied with the things that we did. So it's kind of bad, because when you do things, or you constantly do things trying to please other people, you never get to a point where people get satisfied, because people's desires are always changing, unfortunately. So if you center your whole existence or your whole life around making sure that you please people, you make sure that you don't do things to people, or for people, you don't do things to people that might make them hate you or look at you in a bad way, that puts you in a space where constantly trying to please people, constantly. And then another thing that I've realized with regards to this thing is that there are people, I've seen people post this thing on Facebook, where they say that people with good hearts tend to get heartbroken the most, right? For me, when I look at that, well, I get where they are coming from, I do get where they are coming from. But for me, when I look at that, the only thing that I see is that those are a group of people who try so hard to be good people.
Yeah.
So you're constantly trying to do things that will match with that identity that you've established for yourself, that you are a good person. And then at the end of the day, you end up stretching yourself too much, trying to make sure that you please the people that you are in relationships with. But what we never get to realize is that sometimes we do stretch ourselves too much, to a point that we find ourselves in situations where we do things for people that go unnoticed or that go unappreciated, and that in itself comes back to us, and then it hurts a lot of people that after everything that I did for you, this is how you repay me. So I always tell people that when someone doesn't behave in a way that you don't want them to behave, and the one thing that you have to do is to try to ask yourself, how am I contributing towards this thing? Because you have to realize that to a certain degree, you are constantly, putting fuel into your own fire, but you don't realize, and then that thing obviously fucks up with the way you look at the world and the way you look at yourself, the way you look at life. And you still remember when I told you that there was this other time when I was talking to you, and then I said that there is this thing that usually happens where you obviously when you try to show people that you love them, right? The best way to go about that is to show them that you love them in a way that you want to be loved. That's the only best way you can go about it, right?
Okay.
You give to people how you wanna be given to, and all. So when you come across someone who doesn't understand that language that you use to express your love, they're not gonna see that as love.
That's true.
And everything that you do for them in an attempt to express your love for them will always go unnoticed, and it will never get to a point where they appreciate what you do for them. So over time, because we are human beings, over time you get to a point where you realize that your way of doing things, so your way of showing this person that you love them, doesn't work. And you know what happens when you try something and it doesn't work? You end up putting it aside because you realize that the method doesn't work. So over time you lose the only best way you know how to express love.
Yeah.
And then at the very same time, while you're doing that, you are basically, this is how I look at it, you are basically losing your ability to even love yourself. And then the next time you come across someone who treats you in a way that you knew how to love and how to be loved, you don't recognize that because it never worked when you were doing it for somebody else, and then you ended up stopping, doing that. Obviously that doesn't necessarily mean that it goes away completely, but when you come across someone who can actually love you the way that you want them to be loved, it makes it difficult for you to to see that. And even when they give that to you, you doubt that. It's a subconscious process, but it happens. It does happen when. So that's just the thing. Like, and I'm not saying that people shouldn't show their love to people, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't reach out to helping people, because another thing is that when you grow up in an environment where nothing you do is ever appreciated, you have this need within you to be there for people, so that just one person can tell you that I appreciate what you did for me. You're constantly looking for those opportunities where you can feel like I can do something. So it's just this thing that in your pursuit of that, you end up doing things right with how it usually goes down. It's basically you trying to get mommy's approval or to get father's approval, but you forget, Guti, mom and dad are no longer here, but implicitly so, subconsciously so, that's what you're doing. You're going through life doing those things, and in a way it kind of fucks up the way you relate to people, because when somebody doesn't understand how you go about expressing care for them, expressing love for them, then you feel like, I don't know, it kind of makes you feel inadequate in a way, because you don't feel like
Validates that you're not enough.
Yeah.
God has got you.
We're born again. Yeah, so that's just the thing. It's one of the saddest shit that you can ever find yourself in. So
there's the one thing that when like me and you do these podcasts, and we realize that most people are mostly unconscious when you go through life. when you were talking about the unconscious pattern and how how people go through certain things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, as someone who's more conscious, like slightly conscious than others, you realize the consciousness of other people.
Yeah.
But then, like what you just said, made me realize the unconsciousness within myself. I was like, oh my god. So it brought back the saying that people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones, which is basically the attitude I'm gonna take now as a slightly conscious person. To always be open to people. But yeah, the need for appreciation, right?
Approval.
Yeah, approval. Yeah, stems from early childhood. We all know early childhood always haunts us because we always regress, and you know that's
you never run away from that shit.
Exactly. There's nothing you could experience more deeply than you did when you were young. You're always going back to that, that sense of freedom, wholeness, and independence. But then you're powerful because you can influence, your caregiver, and the appreciation also is associated with survival. So.
Oh yeah, the biological aspect of things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when you get the approval of your mom, then that means naturally, as a human being, as an animal, as a creature, that heightens your level of survival. And these things are usually unconscious. So you just find yourself seeking approval, and you know it's important, and you feel terrible when you don't have it, because your unconscious mind is associated that with dying, because you don't have the approval of important people.
Yeah, you basically want to form groups and form alliances with other people so that you can be able to feel safe in that, and
yeah. So that's like one hard thing to snap out of. Yeah, which brings us to the podcast. Now that we're talking about it, it's like welcome to adulthood.
Yeah, well, welcome to adulthood.
Exactly. Oh yeah, and one big thing about approval, right? Which is one thing that the self-development people and the gurus, right, and the spiritual people realize, but they don't want to put it out there to the general population because a lot of people have been hurt, and they would like to hurt other people. And so if
Can I add something?
Uh-huh.
I wouldn't go with the words they want to hurt other people, but okay.
No, they would like to hurt other people, but it would be unconscious mostly, right? Because when you're hurt, right, you get angry and then you take it out on someone else. It's like
Okay.
yeah,
Misplaced aggression.
exactly. So they would not notice that.
Yeah.
They would just do it unconsciously, like everything they do in their life.
Yeah.
And I think this is one of the reasons why most spiritual people and self-help people don't state this overtly, right? But basically, it is like a primal need, right? For basically women to need to feel appreciated, right?
Well, even men, do you want to feel appreciated? Unfortunately.
Yeah, that's true in terms of everybody having a feminine and masculine side, right? That feminine side that wants to be appreciated, and
Well, the reason why I'm saying that even men want the same thing is because, like I said, it kind of goes back. I'm sorry for disturbing you, but it kind of goes back to the whole thing about, like how you grow up being treated is basically how you are going to go about treating other people. So if you grow up with a mother or a father who never appreciates anything that you do, you'll never see the good that people do because you'll constantly gravitate towards the wrong things that they are doing. That's why I was saying that it's not so much that they want to hurt other people. It's just that subconscious thing where you just act in the best way you know possible. And unfortunately, the best way you know possible is exactly that. So over time, obviously, you come across other individuals who are not like you. And for them, when you do those things to them, they hurt them in a way. So that's why I was saying that let's not use the words, they want to hurt them, but, choose a different way to describe this whole thing.
I knew that was slightly gonna happen because I didn't emphasize the words that I used, right? But basically, I said that women have a primal need, right? A primal need. Like everyone wants to be appreciated, but a primal need is more subconscious if you're not a conscious person, right?
Mm-hmm.
And men don't have that appreciation. It's like
I don't understand.
it's like how women have a maternal instinct,
Mm-hmm.
right? Men don't have that.
Yeah, it's different. I want you to explain the part where you said that.
Basically, it's like that. It's different. Like everybody wants.
How
to
is
be
it different?
appreciated,
I want you
right?
to explain that. How is it different?
Because it's in the nature of women as
Of
females.
wanting to be appreciated.
Yeah.
So for
needing
men,
validation, but for men, it's a want and it can be developed
I
through
don't
childhood.
understand what you say. It's a one.
What I'm trying to tell you is that the difference between the need for men to be appreciated and the need for women to be appreciated is that for women it's a primary need. It stems from an instinct, right? But for men it may stem from experiences and childhood, right? As it is in general with everybody, right?
Okay, let me ask you something quickly. I don't like the whole idea of us arguing, but I just wanted to add something. Why do you think men still see themselves as providers?
Because
Why do they get angry when they feel like the woman doesn't appreciate the efforts they
Exactly.
take into being
It's
the
part of-
provider?
it's part of their it's part of their needs basically. It's like part of their primary instincts to
The same with women.
Exactly.
The whole thing about being appreciated goes both ways,
Exactly.
male and females.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Women don't feel the need to be providers as much as men do. But I'm sure they'd love to be independent, right? But it's not as primary a need as with men, right?
I'm still lost.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to to get this thing
Yeah.
in, because this is the thing. This is how I'm understanding this thing.
Uh-huh.
You're saying that for women it's a primal need,
Mhm.
right? For me, when I look at it, it's a primal need for both of them. It's not only for women.
No, it's not.
Okay.
Dude,
Explain.
that's where the desire to nurture comes from. Right? It's also linked to the maternal instinct.
Don't you think that if the, like, going back to the book, right? If the same thing had happened to a boy child, don't you think they would have gone through life the same way?
Yeah, they would, but it wouldn't be a primal need. It would stem out of experiences. So in general,
Even for her, the reason why she was like that, never saw anything that she did as a good thing, was because of what she was exposed to, because of experience.
yeah, but that's what you do. It's not the same for everybody. Women have a need.
It's
as
not the
well
same for
as-
everyone, and I understand that. But what I'm striving to understand is, how is this a primal need for women, but it's a want for men?
Because
When men actually lose their mind, when they realize that the efforts they put into being providers are not appreciated.
exactly.
Hence, that's why I'm saying now
You're
that
trying to see
if
it.
you,
You're
I'm
trying
trying to see it.
You're trying to see it in one way, right? And
But that's how it is.
that's not how it is.
What do you mean?
If you want to understand what I'm saying, you're going to have to listen to what I'm saying.
I'm listening to what you're saying, but I'm
But
still not.
literally what I'm saying, what you're saying explains what I'm saying.
No, it doesn't.
Well, you said that men can't handle the fact that them being the provider is not validated, right?
Yeah.
Because it's primary.
Isn't that seeking approval?
Exactly?
So where does it come
It's
from?
not really seeking approval.
It is.
seeking the need to feel like you have.
It's still seeking approval, because if people don't recognize the efforts that you put into that, then it's going to make you feel sad. That's basically what
No,
it
but
means
like
to seek
that.
approval.
That's something you're trying to fill in internally, right? It doesn't go out. It doesn't require. It doesn't directly require the affection of other people. It only needs you to feel it, right? If you feel like you're a provider, that's good enough. It's not.
No, it's not. If people don't appreciate you being the provider, then everything is just gonna go downhill.
No, not. Dude, that's not. But the thing is, the need is trying to be fulfilled within yourself, right? And the fulfillment of the need is not outwardly directed.
Let
You
me
don't-
stop arguing with you. Continue. I'm sorry for that.
But basically, okay, what you're saying is, in order for the need to be fulfilled, it has to be validated. Right? That's what you said. That's what you mean by, if people don't see that you're a provider, then you'll still feel like you're not a provider, so it needs outside validation, right? Well, yeah, and I don't know. I think if I explain that.
No, but I think I understand.
Yeah, then I would literally give you a different definition of what validation is altogether, because I think that's what's making more confusion in terms of you understand validation as a confirmation of what you are from the world. Okay.
Not what you are, but validation. Being seen for the things that you do, not necessarily what you are, but being seen and being shown appreciation for the things that you do, more the things that you do than what you are. Because that's the other stuff is a completely different thing. Because like I said, she's a writer, she's a good writer. People keep on telling her that she's a good writer. But the problem now is that it has been drilled into her subconscious mind that you're not good enough. Nothing you ever do ever works out. The reason why the family is fucked up is because of you. So she grows up with the very same narrative, and then she feels the need. Okay, she has this thing that I usually call the need to feel needed. She wants to feel needed, right? Because even when she got to the convent, right, what she did there was she worked far more than anybody else in that place. She was scrubbing the floor, cleaning the dishes, doing all that, all that sort of stuff. She was even dealing with the garden all by herself.
Yeah, that's validation.
Exactly. So it was the need to feel needed. The more she did those things, the more she felt that she was needed. And that gave her, a reason to keep going forward. But that's the thing. Like, I'm not saying that we shouldn't do that. But what I'm trying to say here is that realize the need that you have to feel needed, right? And try to regulate that. What I mean by regulating that is when you see that you're doing something for someone, you can do that, right? But after you've done that, come back and start asking yourself, was it this thing, me acting out of the need to feel needed? Because if you realize that you were acting out of the need to feel needed, you'll come to realize that if this person doesn't show any appreciation for what you do, then it becomes a problem. We're told, because the need to feel needed is basically, I don't even know how to explain this thing.
You're vulnerable to the actual outcome.
Yeah, exactly that. We're told. So it's just that thing that you need to try to regulate that to see whether you're going too far or not. Because it's basically the same thing with emotions. I'm not saying you shouldn't feel your emotions, right? You can feel excitement, but at the very same time realize that after excitement is gone, you're gonna feel empty because the hormones that facilitate the whole thing about excitement are going to get depleted, and your body's response to the absence of those hormones is basically you feeling drained. So you can feel excitement, but when you go to the opposite end of the spectrum, you have to consciously tell yourself that, okay, I've reached my limits now. Because if you can do that, right, you are going to stop yourself from lashing out on other people because of that state that you're in. Because when we're in that state, we tend to become pieces of shit towards other people, young talk. So when you realize that you are in the state, it makes it easy for you to be like, okay, I see where I am right now. So even when somebody walks in and then you can tell them, or if someone understands, okay, but you can tell them that at this very moment I feel so drained and I literally have no power, to regulate my impulses, because what usually happens is that people become impulsive around that time. Impulsive in the sense that they tend to become less empathy. I'm okay. They lack sympathy. Let me just put it that way. Yeah, they kind of lack empathy. You become less sympathetic towards other people when you are drained. It's the same thing when you're hungry. When you're hungry, you just don't care about the next person. The only thing that pops into your mind is you, because that in itself is biology telling you that something needs to be done because the body is running out of energy. So that in itself is an alarm. It's the same thing that, so it's basically an alarm. So you have to attend to that. So even the need to feel needed. You see, the thing, part of the reason why we are having this conversation, I realize that I'm talking too much, But part of the reason why we are having this conversation is because I've realized this thing, on other people who basically do things for people because of the need to feel needed. When I'm told, that's the thing. Like the need to feel needed is basically causing people to stress themselves too thin, in an attempt to try to appear as good people to other people, trying to appear as reliable, trying to appear as caring. Sometimes you just have to be okay with the fact that you can't be everything to someone or to people. It's highly impossible for you to be everything, and which is something that I've seen with quite a few individuals that I've come across. That okay, now I forgot what I wanted to say, but it's fine.